Okay, welcome to our definitions for Vocabulary Unit 9. These are the terms that are coming from the cantos from Dante's Inferno. So we'll be covering cantos 1, 3, 5, 33, and 34. And today we are actually going to do the definitions for some of these terms. So let's begin. Here we go. Arduous. Anything that is arduous involves strenuous effort. It is something that is difficult. Hold on, just trying to see if this pen will work. Involves difficulty. It involves strenuous effort. I should say involving strenuous effort. Something that is tiring and difficult. An arduous journey, like Gilgamesh, as he is going through the 12 leagues of darkness. That was an arduous journey for him. To be assailed is to be attacked, as Troy is assailed by the Greek soldiers. I could also use it in verbal language. To criticize someone is to assail them. To criticize someone sharply. To lead one astray is to lead one away from the correct path, as Dante finds he is when the canto begins. He has gone astray from the true path, from the true direction, and he finds himself in a moral dilemma. He's in a morally questionable place. As you remember from the Partner's Tale last year, avarice is the root of all evil, and so radix malorum est cupiditas. Radix malorum est cupiditas. Cupiditas meaning avarice. Avarice is greed. If you're an avid fan of the Jets or the Giants, it means that you are showing great enthusiasm, great interest, despite their record. You're eager, keen interest in something. Peyton Farquhar was an avid follower of the Southern cause, right? He would do anything for the South. To bellow is to shout, to emit a loud roar. We heard him bellowing all the way down the hall. Anything that is bestial is of or like animals. We could also say that anything that's bestial is savage, savagely cruel, or even depraved. As you will see with Ugolino and Ruggieri, they are bestial. To blaspheme is to speak irreverently about God or about sacred things. That probably came up quite a bit in the Crucible. Carnal, carne means meat, right? So carne is anything to do with the flesh, related to the body or to the flesh. Most of the time, when you use that expression, carnal sins, you're talking about sins that are sexual in nature, sexual in the sense that they deal with the body, the flesh. Carnal versus spiritual. Okay, right along. To censure something is to express severe disapproval for it. If someone's been censured, it's probably taken place in writing, especially in a formal statement. He was censured for his behavior. If you exhort someone, you are urging them to do something. So an exhortation is an address or some kind of communication. It could be a sermon, for example, that urges somebody to do something. That's what exhort means. Okay, so we listen to his exhortations that we would turn from our wicked ways and return to God. That's what Jonathan Edwards tells us in his Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, doesn't he? To flounder is to struggle or to stagger helplessly. Usually when you're floundering, It means that you could be in water a lot of times, in mud. If you're floundering with your studies, it could mean to struggle mentally. Gaudy is showy and ostentatious, tacky. When something is gaudy, it's garish. You know, it's like wearing huge cheap jewelry is a bit gaudy sometimes, right? To be gaunt is to be lean and haggard, usually from starvation or suffering, or aging. It's to look gaunt, as the she-wolf will look gaunt because she's starving. She's lean and haggard because of her hunger. It's never satisfied. We've had the word lamentation a couple of different times in a couple of different places. It always means an expression of grief or sorrow. We go back to Andromache with her singing dirges at the end of her farewell to Hector. A lamentation is anything sad, something involving weeping. Something that is loathsome is repulsive. Something that is loathsome causes disgust or hatred. The nape, everyone, as you'll see with Uglino and Ruggieri, the nape is the back of the neck, the back of a person's neck. You will find that Uglino is feasting on the brains and the lower portion of the skull of Ruggieri. So they talk about him feasting on the nape. Omni means all, potent means power, so omnipotence is all-powerful, almighty, or having all power, just to make it a noun, being almighty. So it's omnipotence instead of just potent. An opportunist is a person who's always looking to do what's best for him or her. So this is a person who exploits circumstances to their advantage. They're not really doing things out of principle. It's just what's best for them. And you will find that the opportunists have a special place in Dante's hell. To pander is to gratify or to indulge. We might say that movies pander to our basest instincts because it throws in a lot of gratuitous sex or some scenes that are just over the top, because they know that they're pandering to our desires, to our basest desires. Anything that's perilous is risky or dangerous. Primordial, you may have heard of the forest primeval. Primordial, anything that is existing at or from the beginning of time. Dante's inscription on the gateway to hell actually says that it has been there since primordial days. It has been there since the beginning of time. We know what a rank is in terms of nouns and things like that, but as an adjective, when something is rank, it has a foul smell, an offensive smell. The rank air surrounding that swamp. Repast is a meal. If you're sitting down to break bread, as Achilles does with Priam, he might sit down and have a repast with him, have some food with him. Sensuality is the enjoyment or the expression of any physical pleasure. Most often sexually, right? Carnal. The wife of Bath is said to be very sensual, right? She with her gapped teeth. If you're very shrewd, it means you show sharp powers of judgment. He's a shrewd businessman, you might have heard. You're very astute. I think we actually had that word once upon a time. If you're spewing out falsehoods, it means that you're spitting them out, right? To expel in large quantities, and you're doing it rapidly. We could say that the factory spewed out black smoke from its chimney. The buses were spewing out black clouds of exhaust. To spew is to expel. To swoon is to faint, as Dante will do on more than one occasion. We can also say that he was swooning with desire. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're fainting, but it means to be emotionally affected by someone. You're ecstatic. She swooned at the concert. A throng is a large crowd, tightly packed. There were throngs of souls waiting to be ferried across the river Akron by Karen. A tremor is an involuntary quivering motion. For example, if his hands were succumbing to tremors, it's an involuntary quivering action. We could also say that a tremor is a slight earthquake as well. That's what Dante will feel at one point, the earth quaking. Tumult is a loud or confused noise. Or I can actually just say tumult is confusion, disorder. There was a tumult when they announced who was the victor. There was disorder. A vestibule is kind of like a waiting room. It's a place in between places, so you can say it's an antechamber or a hall or a lobby. Next to the door of something, next to the door of another room. So, for example, if you are in a waiting room, you could say that you were in the vestibule. There's usually a vestibule outside a church, too. Woe is great sorrow, great distress, as Oedipus experienced at the end of the play, when all of the prophecies have come true. Creusa was a wraith. I think all of you remember that a wraith is a ghost or a phantom, an apparition. And our last word is zeal. Zeal is great enthusiasm. If you show zeal for a particular subject, perhaps you're going to study it in the future. That would be great. Great enthusiasm, great energy to feel zeal for something. And those are your words from the Inferno. Okay, good luck, everybody.